they definitely set the tone, with the stops. Then we got going on offense. We struggled on, third down there, but I thought the guys did a good job running the ball. I thought we did a good job stopping the run. The opportunistic that our perimeter guys are. Just rallying around the football. So, I'm very happy with the way we played.
Mike McCarthy noting and loving the improvement from week 1 to week 2 of the preseason. Welcome back into Inside Cowboys training camp, presented by Ford, Nicole, Hutchison, and Patrik No-C Walker. You gotta love the improvement that those guys made, but you also have to enjoy and love the fact that this Cowboys team came out healthy after that second preseason game. What do you think about that, Patrik?
That's always going to be the biggest thing when it comes to preseason games. Along with evaluation, you want to leave whole. They had a little bit of a scare going into that game. Mazi Smith, former first-round pick, suffered a severe allergic reaction, required hospital treatment. He is recovering, but it did force him to miss the game. Good news being he's on the right track, but better news being, like we talked about, no injuries reported from the Cowboys front, so they're going to go into this preseason finale against the Los Angeles Chargers at full health for the most part.
You talked about Mazi Smith. Well, he did not participate, like you mentioned, in the game against the Raiders, but that defensive line certainly making strides. And even though it's the preseason, you got to love the numbers that was on the stat line. 68 rushing yards for this Raiders offense. You got to love that number, Patrik.
It is the preseason, but it was against the Raiders starters. Okay, so a little bit more delicious when you put it in that capacity. Got to love what you saw from the Cowboys defensive front, even without Mazi Smith being able to play. Jordan Phillips, newly acquired from the New York Giants, only had been in Oxnard a couple days, and yet he took the field some heavy reps as well, and those reps looked very good. So when you add Jordan Phillips to the equation, I could see how the Cowboys' run defense should take a step forward.
Ooh, you got to love that as well. But when you talk about the run defense, you got to mention the linebackers and how this group has certainly taken strides from 2023 to the start of 2024. And when you talk about that linebacker competition, Nick Vigil has certainly started to put his name in that conversation. How difficult is he making – hey, pointing the eyes. How difficult is he making that linebacker room competition?
He is. Listen, Nick Vigil – I see you, okay? He is making it a bit more challenging. He was a late camp addition. Obviously, he has some pre-existing relationships with a couple of defensive guys, Mike Zimmer being one of them. But he came out and he's hitting the ground running, particularly on special teams. What's interesting, though, is Willie Harvey Jr., the former UFL product. He has had a great camp as well. You saw him almost have a pick six against the Raiders, had 2 PBUs in that first quarter. They had equal amount of snaps. Nick Vigil and Willie Harvey both had 2 combined tackles, a couple PBUs. That linebacker depth chart is looking pretty good right now.
Ooh, that linebacker room is heating. That competition's heating up, but so is the safety competition. How about Wanye Thomas? Certainly the stock is going up for him. We're talking about Wanye Thomas coming up next.
Inside Cowboys Training Camp, presented by Ford, is brought to you by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys. Sleep Number, the official sleep and wellness partner of the Dallas Cowboys. And by your North Texas Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Texas. This segment is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors, official sporting goods retailer of the Dallas Cowboys.
Welcome back into Inside Cowboys Training Camp, presented by Ford, Nicole, Hutchison, Patrik No-C Walker, and we mentioned coming up after that break, the safety room in that competition and the depth, especially behind Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson, is certainly heating up as well. But when you talk about Wanye Thomas, he's a guy who's going into year 3, right? It's a contract year for him, but that stock for him is going up. Marquise Bell, though, making it difficult against the Rams of Wanye Thomas in week 2 of the preseason with a pass breakup in the opening drive against the Raiders and putting pressure on Gardner Minshew. Just what did you like from Wanye?
And Wanye is taking those steps forward, just as Marquise Bell is. This is the second consecutive week that we're talking about safety play having impacted the game for the Cowboys. And Cowboys fans who've been around a while, you know that this team has not always valued that position. So to see the depth, Malik Hooker, Donovan Wilson, Marquise Bell, Wanye Thomas, and then quiet as it's kept, you have a guy like Julius Wood, who he's actually making plays as well, that undrafted young man. So, but Wanye, he comes in, he's showing you coverage ability. He's showing that he can pressure the quarterback as well from the backfield. He can do it all, and he's only getting better with every rep.
Another guy in that competition is Israel Mukuamu. What more do you want to see from him?
Well, Israel Mukuamu, for right now, it's all about just getting as many preseason reps as possible. He missed several practices the first couple of weeks of training camp, as well as the matchup against the Rams with a groin injury. He was back against the Raiders. He was moving extremely well. I want to see if the Cowboys are going to utilize him more as a safety or maybe drop him down as kind of a big nickel, because when they did the latter, Tom Brady had one hell of a time getting past him. So Izzy can do a lot of things as far as versatility goes.
And you know, when you are versatile, that obviously means more for you and more higher chance for you
More
making
eats.
this Cowboys roster and more eats. Now switching over to that cornerback position, Keemon Hall with a pick six in the Raiders game. When you talk about him, how crucial was that? The depth of that cornerback position is pretty steep as well.
You know, I don't know how Mike Zimmer and Al Harris feeds a room full of Hawks the way they do, but it is in fact a room full of Hawks. Obviously, Trayvon Diggs, he'll be back soon. Deron Bland, Jordan Lewis, those guys can get their hands on the ball. But now you're starting to see guys like Kalen Carson, the rookie. He can do the same thing. Here comes Keemon Hall. Early camp addition. He was claimed off of waivers from the 49ers. He's had kind of a tenuous journey in the NFL, unable to find a home, hoping that is with the Cowboys. And the best way to do that is a 69-yard pick six in a preseason game. So keep an eye on Keemon Hall, because that's not a fluke play. He's been doing that in practice as well. Had a multi-interception day not too long ago out here in Oxnard. He's going to make some waves as far as the roster cut downs come.
If you were drawing up your roster right now, who would be in your cornerback room?
Put me on the spot, did you?
Absolutely.
All right, let me put on my general manager hat. Let's go, obviously. You got Trayvon Diggs, Deron Bland, Jordan Lewis. Those are my big three. Kalen Carson, a.k.a. Seatbelt Carson, if you will. Got to have him. Behind that, I want to see what Eric Scott can do to make some waves. I need to know how they're looking to play Israel Mukuamu. Does he factor into that equation? But then again, now we're talking about Keemon Hall. So Keemon Hall, he's coming in. He's making some waves as well. So it's not going to be easy. I also wonder if the Cowboys are going to carry 4, 5, 6 cornerbacks, because injury does happen at that position. So you want to be careful.
Well, that roster cut down to the 53-man roster is in about 2 weeks. So guys only have about 1 week, the Chargers game, to really try to solidify their spot on this roster. But who has solidified their spot so far? I mean, I'm just going to take a guess here. We're talking about that coming up next in Inside Cowboys Training Camp.
This segment was brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors, official sporting goods retailer of the Dallas Cowboys.
We're here to wrap things up on Inside Cowboys Training Camp, presented by Ford. Nicole, Hutchison, Patrik, Walker, and this Cowboys team has one last chance to impress this Cowboys staff. When you talk about a guy who has possibly solidified his name on this roster through the first 2 weeks of the preseason, who you got?
You know, I'm not going to go for low-hanging fruit, headline names.
Yeah.
I'm going down the roster chart. Talk to me about Justin Rogers, the rookie 7th-round pick, and I get it. He's a flyer pick, but a couple of things to consider here. One, in the absence of Mozzie Smith against the Raiders, who was starting at your nose tackle? It was Justin Rogers, and he played well for all intents and purposes. He's had a solid camp out here, and the Cowboys are deficient at nose tackle as far as getting those guys rotated in. Yes, they brought in Jordan Phillips, but they also played him at 3 tech against the Raiders. So keep an eye on that. I'm looking at Justin Rogers as a guy who will sneak his way into the 53.
Who's a guy that's right on the bubble for you?
Guys that are right on the bubble. Let's talk about Keemon Hall,
Okay.
right? Again, he's been having a strong camp, several interceptions out here at Oxnard. He had the pick 6 against the Raiders. However, when you're talking about the numbers at the cornerback position, it's really going to be tough, because you got Trayvon Diggs, Deron Bland, Jordan Lewis. Eric Scott is only in year 2, and he was traded up to be acquired.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Kalen Carson, he's absolutely a lock. So when you're talking about that cornerback room, it gets really difficult to try to figure out how to get Keemon Hall in, but maybe they'll figure it out.
I'm going to go with a headline name, Marshawn Nealon, just because he has certainly improved in his pass rushing ability. He's a huge run stopper, stopping the run, but we've got so much more to look forward to against the Chargers on Saturday. That kickoff is at 3 p.m. Check all your local listings for coverage.
Inside Cowboys Training Camp, presented by Ford, was brought to you by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys. Sleep Number, the official sleep and wellness partner of the Dallas Cowboys. And by your North Texas Ford dealers. Ford is the best in Texas.